if there's one thing that the Exodus and the journey into the wilderness teaches us, it's that Hashem loves us, right? More than we can imagine, more than we can understand, because our love in this world, however unconditional we may think it is, there's some conditions on it. Hashem's love for us is beyond anything we can possibly fathom, and he wants a relationship with us. And what's his love language? Emunah and bitachon, right? Belief and faith, right? The internalization of that belief into our hearts. That's Hashem's love language. At least one of them, if not the primary one, even if it doesn't make any sense in our heads, right? Martin Luther King Jr., he was a Bible man. Well, he described faith like this. He said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Right? And so looking back at my question about whether it was a blemish on my faith to get the bars on my home and the plastic windows on my car, I think, in light of what we've been talking about, that the answer is no for the bars on the home and yes for the plastic windows on the car. What do I mean? Why do I say that? Well, I remember when I got those bars. I remember, I wasn't all wound up about it. I wasn't scared and I wasn't anxious. It just seemed like the right thing to do, to take this worldly measure that I needed to take to protect my family. So I did it. It really wasn't from a place of fear. It was more just caution. It was just trying to do what I felt was the right thing that Hashem wanted me to do. It felt like a soldier going into battle and taking his sword and his shield. Right? It was a shield from my home. But my heart didn't waver in my faith for Hashem, that Hashem was the ultimate protector. King David took more than one stone to battle against Goliath. Was that a blemish in his faith? No, he was just doing what he felt like he needed to do. And that, I think, was reflected in the serenity in my heart when I made that decision. But I do think that the plastic windows were a blemish in my faith. I'm not beating myself up. I'm really not. I'm a human being. That's okay. Again, I think it was a blemish not because of the action itself, but because of the emotion of fear that I feel like has been driving that decision. Hashem wants this relationship with us. He wants us to love him and to fear him. And when we allow fear of man to enter our hearts, it comes at the expense of our fear of Hashem, of our relationship with Hashem. However you look at it, right? Fear of man on some level is a form of idolatry. The great sage known as the Noam Eliezer, he explains the verse, the midwives feared Hashem, right? What happened? They were ordered to execute the children and they refused. They feared Hashem. They had only one fear. The midwives who disobeyed Pharaoh knew that they could have one fear in their hearts at a time. And hence they increased their fear of Hashem. So they wouldn't have fear of Paro. We spoke about the holiness and the faith of the women, right? As they danced with the timbrels that they had prepared ahead of time. But the men, well, they didn't have those reserves of faith, right? That just burst forth from their hearts like the women did. Yes, the men did sing the Shirah, they sang, but I think they couldn't quite let themselves dance. Perhaps they were afraid to let themselves actually believe it was true, that they were really free. They didn't have the courage or perhaps the faith to really let themselves go there, right? Like the women did. So they sang, but they didn't dance. And then we see only a few weeks down the road, we see the despicable episode of the golden calf. It's so sad and so tragic. And we see that it was the men who danced and the women who didn't. Right? And the Belz Rebbe explains that the women didn't dance at the golden calf because they did dance at the sea. And the men did dance at the golden calf because they didn't dance at the sea. He explains this, he explains it's the case because if you were able to be truly happy, let yourself really believe and love Hashem and be truly happy praising and serving Hashem, then you won't have to seek happiness and joy in other places, in forbidden places. You won't need to.